A to Z, licensed games, something else. Right, so, usually tabletop games don't fit in this series' remit. I won't bore you with the details, but as much as I would like to cover games like Shadow One, well, as that incredibly creepy song says, it does create a lot of blurred lines. However, V is quite the barren wasteland, and plus this particular game has interested me for years. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is a 2004 PC game based off a dice-based role-playing game of the same name, which is basically all about vampires staying in the shadows. This particular story is set in present-day LA, and you're the newest vampire on the block, all set to follow the Camarilla's rules and do their bidding. So yes, this is an RPG. Such games are massive and difficult to cover, especially in a vid like this that's supposed to be pretty short. But well, I can give some impressions. Now as I said, this game has interested me for a long time. Lots of people talk it up as a unique beast, with personality that you don't often find in a Western RPG, and the chance to actually, properly, roleplay, as opposed to just going for a story. Does the game live up to that? Yes, it does. Sure, you do get your boring tutorial section to start with, but as soon as you actually thrust into the city, there's so much to do. And my character, she's different. I answered all the questions at the beginning, and I found myself thrown into the Malkavian clan, which, if you don't know, are defined by being completely and incurably insane. Every single response my character gives is this obtuse, often hilarious mixture of non sequiturs and metaphors. She's a doozy, she really is. And almost all the other characters I speak to are pretty good as well, decently acted, and very well animated to boot, along with a superb script. You know, it's quite amusing to compare this game to, say, Skyrim or Fallout, and see how it's so much more successful at making the characters feel alive, despite using the same techniques and being years older. Conversations and finding your way towards the quests in Bloodlines is actually a joy, as opposed to just a relentless information hunt. And it's also helped by the fact that talking is important. You can do a lot of persuading, and there's lots of different ways to do it, as opposed to just a generic option. You can intimidate, you can confuse, and you can even seduce. Or of course you could just go straight for the violence. That's always an option. But you know, it's not necessarily the best one. It feels like there's plenty of different ways to get what you want and to achieve your goals. And then, of course, being a vampire, well, there's always the feeding. Good.
Honey.
Plenty of ways to get that too. Now, I've never exactly been into vampires, but well, this game could almost change that. Certainly knocks that dweeb Robert Pattinson into a bucket of blood, that's for sure. Still, it has to be said that the game is not perfect. The combat, once you get to it, is kinda terrible, and so is the stealth. More than that, the game is very, very buggy. You and enemies will get stuck, the game might crash a few times, and you may even have a rough time starting it if you aren't still rocking like Windows XP or something. At the time, most people couldn't look past that. The game didn't sell well, and as a matter of fact, it killed the studio that made it. Troika closed its doors in 2005, which is pretty unfortunate. Nowadays, however, the game's reputation has increased dramatically. The good parts of Bloodlines, the actual role-playing, the brilliant script, the feeling that the game is truly open to you, well, they're held up as examples for newer games to follow, and people wish there were more games like it. And to be honest, it's a massive shame that there isn't. It is a flawed game, but you really should look past these issues and just give the damn thing a go already. See what happens. In no time at all, my dear, you'll be dead. And loving it. Now, is there really all that much to say about today's honourable mentions? No. Vampire Hunter D for the PS1 is perhaps the only one of them that's even slightly worthy of note. An old school survival horror title, sorta like Resident Evil. Pre-rendered walls, lots of camera angles, all that stuff. The mood's quite nice, the music's very good, and I do like the whole talking evil hand thing, but the tank-like controls and the camera angles do make combat incredibly annoying. These were also the days when you often had to struggle to see the enemy attacking you, and, well, nobody misses that. If this was more like Tomb Raider camera-wise instead of Resident Evil, you know, it would probably be great. I think it should probably be remade. Aside from that, well, there's Venom's Spider-Man Separation Anxiety, which is the sequel to Maximum Carnage. That game was pretty good, and this ain't bad either, although on the whole it's not really as memorable. And there's also a game based off VR Troopers. Do you remember them? They were basically the poor man's Power Rangers, making this the poor man's Power Rangers video game. Now, I didn't feature any Power Rangers games because, well, they all suck, so you can imagine that I'm not exactly hot about this one either. And then there's a game based off V for the Spectrum. You know, V, Michael Ironside, Alien Invasion, all that. To be honest, I have absolutely no clue what to do here. I hardly know what to make of this rubbish. And well, that's it. The end of the honourable mentions. Shitwoon, please. Let me tell you about my favourite comic. What do you reckon it is, eh? Something sophisticated like The Watchmen, surely? Or something obscure, a graphic novel, a piece of visual art? Nah, it's Viz. Now some of you might be saying, what the hell is Viz? And I'll tell you. It's a monthly collection of extremely rude and funny comic strips. My taste in comics basically stops and ends with the likes of Sid the Sexist, Johnny Fartpants and the Drunken Bakers. It's been going quite a while now, since the 1980s, and it's still pretty funny even if its heyday was probably some time ago, the early 90s perhaps. And it was around that time that, of all things, a game came out based on Viz, shown here for the Amiga. And it's quite odd. Did you enjoy things like How to Be a Complete Bastard or Jackass the Game? Well, this might be for you then. You play as one of three characters: Biffa Bacon, a teenage bully, Johnny Fartpants, kinda self-explanatory, and Buster Gonad, who has unfeasibly large testicles. No matter who you choose, you'll first play a minigame that you probably won't understand, before encountering the bulk of the game, a race. Dodge various obstacles and beat your rivals to the finish. Pretty simple stuff really, and frustrating as hell to boot. If you get knocked down 3 times or the clock runs out, the game's over and you go all the way back to the start. But that's basically all there is to this game, although there are touches that are quite uniquely Viz. One thing that is quite surprising is that Viz's rudeness is left in, fully intact. As soon as the race starts, foul-mouthed TV presenter Roger Melly starts commentating and throwing it all out there. I mean, how many games from the early 90s do you know where you can see arse and fuck and shit and bastard and cunt thrown about all over the shop? And hell, I've not even commented on those giant bloody testicles yet. What are they doing in a game? So yeah, it's quite a sweary affair. Hell, the game's final level actually does feature fucking in a nightclub, while a fun one's going on. You couldn't make it up. And there are, of course, plenty of cameos from other Viz characters. Almost anyone who was on the page around this time is in the game, from Spoilt Bastard to the Pathetic Sharks. So how do I sum this game up? Well, as an actual game, it's kind of bland. The racing does get old pretty damn quick. But the presentation is quite unique and, to be honest, very damn good, even if the graphics are a bit dark. It's completely juvenile, obviously, and Viz is a hell of a lot funnier than just a load of swear words, but it's still something you almost never would see around this time. If you had this game back in the day, you'd be the coolest kid around. Well, depending on how young you were. It'd actually be dangerous, especially if it was like a pirate copy that your mum and dad didn't know about. And like so many rude things, it'd probably end up broken to pieces and dumped in a hedge somewhere, along with all of your most prized scud. Viz the game, to be honest, isn't really all that shit, but yeah, this is where it most definitely belongs. And so we flick the V's up to the letter V. And up next, something very special. Obviously we haven't done any sports games so far, and that's not going to change. But that doesn't include wrestling, does it? And I've always wanted to do a wrestling video. So, drop that leg on the couch and grab your spandex, because the next video's going to be all about WWE and WCW games. But until then, thanks for watching, and wherever you are, whoever you be, have a good one, take care, and I'll see you next time.